I got one. I have a gaming laptop. So, gaming laptops, who are they for? Well, let's start from the very top. I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience, then we're going to get into both the benefits and the not so benefits about gaming laptops, the pros and cons, and then we're going to wrap up with who really should consider getting a gaming laptop instead of just, building a PC or buying a PC. We'll get into it. Before we get started, I would just like to thank everybody for tuning in. It means the world. We are 20 subs, last I checked, away from hitting 1K, and that's gonna be such an awesome barrier to break. So I'm super excited for that. This video is being pre-recorded as well as the one that will be coming out the day after Christmas. You should be getting this video on Christmas Eve. And then the next one after. They're both going to be pre-recorded because I have to go do things with family. So yeah, I'm recording both of those today. So don't be too worried once I'm wearing the exact same outfit with the same hair and everything in the next video on Friday. But yeah, I would just like to thank you all. If you enjoy this type of content, please consider subscribing. It means the world. And yeah, back to the video. So I have had a total of probably 4 laptops in my life. My first laptop was a little red Asus laptop that I got years ago. It was, for a while there, considered one of the best PCs we had in our house, which was funny. I think it was second to one of our desktop towers. And it was able to play Minecraft at a staggering 50 frames per second at a 6 render distance or something. It was stellar, and I loved it as a kid. That was my childhood laptop. I remember one time I covered it with duct tape. And I also got this sticker that said NASA on it. It said NASA on it that I got from some stand from something at some point. And I slapped it on it, and it was our NASA space computer or whatever. I loved that thing. It was one of my favorite laptops. It was what carried me through to enjoying PC gaming so much. This is where I played all of my web games when I was a kid. I was playing a lot of Kongregate, Unity web games. And that's where I really got into, any shooters I played was on there. Apart from Minecraft and Roblox, which were the only things he was able to run at the time, it was all Unity web games, and I adored playing those on that. So that's really one of the things that really cultivated my love for PCs. So it's kind of sad to see the kind of slow death, it seems, of web-based games, although some kids use Chromebooks to play web games in school, which is fun. When I was 13, right, I got a PC for Christmas. It was a $500 deal, right, for a 1063 gigabyte, a 500, or no, it was a terabyte hard drive, which was crazy at the time, and it had 8 gigs of RAM. It was, and a 7400U, I think. No, maybe just 7400, right? But yeah, it was a big step up. The first time I was able to launch Skyrim Special Edition was awesome. And that was a desktop tower. But then in 2019, when I was 15 years old, I saved up enough money from working my job and got a laptop. It was a 1660 Ti with 16 gigs of DDR4 memory. I don't remember what CPU it had in it. But let me tell you, it was such a huge step up from what I had. It was great. It was awesome. It was able to play everything I could ever want at the time. And the only issue it had was thermals. But that's going to be a common theme when it comes to laptops. Is going to be 1, your price to performance, 2, your thermals, and past that, it's what benefit are you getting from it? Is it worth the cost? But then after that, I ended up, instead of switching back to a desktop, because I knew the benefits of having a desktop, I believe. No, I didn't learn really about the price to performance thing. Because again, I'm a kid at this age, right? I'm a kid then, and then I don't know too much about PCs, just that I like using them. And I didn't know that laptop counterparts were so much weaker. At that time, I'm in college, right? And I decide I need to upgrade. And so I thought that due to the fact that I'm in college, I need a computer to use, for taking notes and all that, I'll get a laptop. So I got a 3080 laptop. I think it had an 11800. No, okay, it was running DDR5, I believe, but I'm not 100% sure what CPU it had. Again, at this time, I was not the most into that type of thing. But it did have 32 gigs of RAM, which was cool. And that thing was difficult to use. It was hard because my brother had a 3060 laptop, right? He had a 3060 in it. And this laptop had a 3080. But I hardly was seeing any benefit, and I really think that's because we had the same CPU. So there was a bottleneck there. Although there was a chance that it had a better CPU, I do not remember. All I know is that it wasn't getting as much performance as I'd like for what it was. It cost $2,000 at the time. It was really, really rough, to be honest. But yeah, so that was like in 2022, I believe, sometime like that. But a little while after, I switched to desktop and haven't turned back since. I've been on desktop. I couldn't deal with, the thermal issues. That laptop, 3080, had a ton of thermal issues. Constant overheating. Not like overheating to death, but like where it was like in the 90s all the time on everything and 80s like all the time. It was rough. I repasted several times. Nothing worked. It was rough. It was really rough. But now, finally, after some years, I have decided to get a laptop. It is not as good as my other laptop, the 3080 laptop. It is a 3060 6GB, so it's rough in some things, that's for darn sure. An 11800H and 16 gigabytes of DDR4 3200. I also added another a terabyte drive on top of the 512 it had in there. And why did I get this? I got it. I'm going on a trip in summer. In the summer, we're going to be going on about a month-long trip, and I needed some sort of PC to just throw in there, portable, easy to use, out there. I originally was thinking maybe having like a tower and a monitor, but that's like we're going in a camper, and that's a lot, especially when it's like my whole family, right? So that wasn't happening. So instead, I got this laptop. So let's get into laptops themselves. That's my experience, right? My, I guess, credentials. What experience I've had with laptops throughout the years, and why I tend to have a negative opinion on them, but why I got one now, and why I'm actually happy with what I got. We'll get into that. All right, for convenience. Okay, this is the pro. This is the pro of laptop computers, is the convenience factor. Not only is it portable, right? You can take it anywhere. It's easy. But you don't have to purchase many peripherals. All you really need is a mouse and a pair of headphones, and you're good to go, right? Because this has the screen built in. It has the keyboard built in. It has a touchpad, so if you're playing like point and click things and you don't care about having a mouse, you don't even need a mouse, which is great. It's really cool that that's a thing. It's also just, being all one unit, right? It's right there. It's easy to access ports if you need USBs thrown in on PCs. It's further away. It's kind of hard to get to the USBs on the back, but that's kind of a me problem. Not everybody has that problem. It depends on your setup. But yeah, that's the thing. And then, the portability and all that is insane. Being able to just throw it in a backpack, take it wherever you need, and boom, you got something there. It just works. It does everything. That is the benefit. The benefit to laptop computers is the convenience. It is convenient to just have the computer. And like, I just opened it up and now I'm able to, do crud. It's just there. It's just running. And that's the basic thing. It's also the laptop I got is, I gave you the things. It's a Dell G15. And at the time it wasn't very well regarded, but I think it was more of a software based thing. It's practically just an Alienware. But the cool part, I got this off Facebook Marketplace with the specs it has for $300 flat. Feeling pretty good about that. Having a working computer like this, 16 gigs of DDR4 could almost sell for that. So I'm pretty happy. Okay, it wouldn't actually sell for that much, right? But again, I could probably resell this for more if I really wanted to. But yes, $300 for this, so I'm really happy with what I have. But now let's get into the cons. I got this. I know what I want it for. It's specifically for the convenience factor. I know what I need this for and why I want it. Now, let's get into the cons. Because there's quite a few cons, right? First off, price to performance. This is very important to know when you're going into the laptop market. And it's the big thing that I think it's kind of like anti-consumer to a degree, right? It's anti-consumer to a degree, the way they do the naming. I was unaware of this when I was buying my 3080 back in 2022 because, I was hardly into tech hardware at the time. I basically just knew the bare minimum to, 32 gigs of RAM and a 3080 must be a beast, right? And I guess it was a good computer. It did the things, but as soon as I wanted to switch I got a 1440p monitor for it, and I was starting to feel the roughness of 8 gigs of VRAM. But yeah, it is a little bit of a shame, right? It was a little bit of a shame, the naming of these things. This is a 3060 laptop. You would expect that a 3060 desktop GPU would be a 3060, right? It's both a 3060. So why would this PC be separate from that PC? And that's because they have to cut down. They have to cut down. And sometimes they're even different dies, but they have to cut down the GPU because of the thermal design. You can't have something that's a full desktop, it has a dedicated cooler with, this chunky thing like this thick that they can just slap on it and blow 3 fans at all the time. And also it's chugging like 150 watts just for it or whatever, 200 watts just for it, right? You can't do that with a laptop because it has it is one thing. It's small. It needs to allot for not only the cooling for the GPU, but the CPU as well. And so that's why there's also CPU laptop variants that are weaker than their desktop counterparts, which is also a thing. But the thing is, this is all stripped down in order to allow for the cooling, right, of a laptop, and also the fact that it won't have like a super beefy power supply. The charger that came with this is a 240 watt charger. And I have an 850 watt power supply in my PC. And generally you're not getting anything lower than like a 550 watt. But this is half of that, right? This is half of that. And that's just the charger. So it's also charging while playing. So its actual thermal design, I think, only uses like a max of 160, 200 watts. And it does the things. But it's trying to get the most performance it possibly can before the thermal design just cannot keep up, and it has to lower its power. And that's when we get into it. And that's why it's like, but the big thing is the fact that the price of a 3080 mobile chip in a laptop is going to be about equivalent to the desktop tower counterpart. So you're spending, I could have spent, the $2,000 on that laptop that I got with a 3080. I could have probably spent $2,000 on a desktop variant that would have performed, 2 times better, right? With a far better temps and lower noise and, all of these things that would have been better. Or I could have bought something that was $1,800 with a maybe lower tier GPU, but still better than the laptop counterpart, right? And then bought a cheap $200 laptop to do my schoolwork with while in college, going to classes and taking notes. I could have done that, and it would have allowed me to have better gaming performance while at my gaming computer, while also still having the benefits of a school computer. While also, a big thing with gaming laptops is the fact that I wanted to use it for the convenience of having a laptop to take notes at school, right? I wanted to be able to take those notes. The problem is, you need to be plugged in practically 24/7 with gaming laptops. Their batteries are garbage poo-poo. You have some eco modes or battery saver modes that can get you, I think, the most I've ever gotten a gaming laptop to last. And this is new, right? And of course, this is new at the time. I don't know if this has changed lately. And you can get like laptops with the AI Max 380s or whatever the frick they're called that might have really, really good power saving and battery life, as well as thermal design, just because of the fact that it's one APU. That is something I'm really interested in getting at some point. It's too rich for my blood, I think. But yeah, I wanted to do that, but the battery life is so bad that you have to be plugged in 24/7, and it loses power while in your backpack pretty quick. You can put it to sleep, shut it down, all that jazz, right? But it's still losing battery faster than a lot of things, and so you can only get like one or two classes worth of battery out of this thing without plugging it in. And it was a real shame. Eventually, I actually traded my 3080 laptop for the MacBook Air that my brother had, because I needed the MacBook for what I was doing, and he wanted a computer. So we swapped. I got the bad end of the stick when it comes to price. He spent like some amount, like $1,300 on it. I spent $2,000 on mine, but I will say MacBooks hold their value better. So he was going to be able to sell his at the time for probably about what I sold mine. So what I would have been selling mine for. So we just traded, and it worked out for the best for me. I got a Mac, and its Mac's battery, stellar. It does all of the things. It's efficient at school, really good. MacBooks for schoolwork, top of the line. And I don't use Mac for anything else. I use it strictly for productivity work, nothing else. But I still prefer Windows in general for productivity, but it's strictly just because of the battery life. That's really the only reason I wanted it. But yeah, where were we? That was a bit of a ramble. Yes, price to performance, desktop counterparts, even lower tier desktop hardware is going to perform better than a laptop. Generally, you're going to want to do your own, like if you're looking at, I'm looking at a 5070 Ti laptop. You want to do your own research, right? Look at the performance numbers of them against the desktop hardware. You're most definitely losing out on a ton of performance while also paying the same amount. But if that convenience is a necessary thing for you, and there's no compromise to be made, right? There's no way you can do desktop tower and cheaper PC, cheaper laptop. If that's not something you can do, then get a laptop and it'll be fine. But there is the next thing we need to get to, and that is thermals. This is probably the biggest issue I have had with laptops, period, is how hot they get. They murder themselves. So every laptop I've had, including the one I just got, laptops are built to throw power at the wall as hard as possible. And this is only on battery, right? Not on battery, on power, only when you're plugged in. Throw as much power at the wall until it gets too hot, and then lower everything until it gets to a more stable area. But when that is stable, is so hot and also so low performance. When I first got this, it would easily reach the 100 degrees on the CPU, 85 in the GPU, right? And throttle down like crazy. I took it apart, repasted, it got better in that it was reaching 100 on the CPU and reaching 85 on the GPU, but at better clocks. So you got performance out of it instead of, actually fixing the thermals. So that's what happened when I repasted, and that's also on the ultra performance preset instead of just performance. I ended up switching to performance. For some reason, the ultra performance mode on this laptop allows the CPU to get up to 100 degrees, which I am not okay with, ever. I'm never okay with that. So the performance mode only lets it get to 95, which I say only 95, even though that's terrifying for someone who is super aware of temps. I'm really scared of temperatures. I don't want anything melting. But yeah, it only gets to 95 and then throttles. So that kind of left it at about the same performance as I was getting before. And then that's where this comes in, and this minimizes convenience. This is the solution, I guess, to laptop thermals. It is this. Big, fat laptop cooling pads. Look at that. Super thick. This one was one of the cheaper, well-reviewed laptop coolers that I could find that were the sealed ones. The ones that kind of seal the edges so that none of the air can escape on the sides. It forces the air through the fan vents, which is what makes it better. If you look at the bottom of a laptop, it's got those vents right there for the fans. There, and then there's one on the mirrored side, right, that have those vents. And so what this does is it seals the edges, so any air blown by that one singular fan goes straight into those vents. And here's the thing. This thing works. It works, and it was cheap. This one was like $45. I say cheap, even though that's that made this a $350 computer instead of a $300 computer. What? I was tempted to do the Llano V12, which is $100, but it is the best reviewed cooling pad. But yeah, it's cooling pads. They do the job. They get it cool. Now here's the thing. The CPU inside of this still reaches 95. It reaches 95 at almost its pure, highest clock speed, but the GPU stays at 75. between 80 and 75 under load. So I really think what's going on is that the GPU can go up to like 115 watts in this thing, but the CPU can go up to like 65, 70 watts. And the CPU just like, for some reason, takes the brunt of that. The amount of surface area on the die of the GPU is way higher. The amount of piping I think it just ends up being nicer over there, and more of the air, it just helps it more. There's more dispersal, and the CPU it can't get as much out when it comes to heat as much as the GPU does. So the GPU kind of comfortable sitting around 75 to 80 while the CPU still gets murked. And here's the issue I have with that is that in a lot of these laptops that I've had, including this laptop, in almost every situation, I am CPU limited, even with a 3066 gig. If it's not VRAM, it's CPU, right? It's rare that I'm GPU limited. I think it's really a computer for the era it was made in. If I play Doom Eternal, right? Doom Eternal is a game from around when this thing was released. It's perfect because it's a not very CPU intensive game while also being able to push the 3066 gig pretty darn good. And that's a game where I'm GPU limited in, right? But every game that's newer, it's CPU limited all the way CPU limited. The 11800H just can't keep up in newer titles. And that's the rough part. My goal with this laptop, why I got this laptop in general, is so that I had something that can play everything. It can play everything. And I'm happy about that. It can play everything at, maybe the lowest settings, right? But it'll be playable. It might not be optimal. It'll be playable. And that's why I got it. It'll play everything. It'll do all the jobs I need to do. It still beats out the MacBook Air that I have's CPU by a little bit in productivity work. And so I can use this for productivity. I can, edit some, traveling videos, figure out how I'm going to do that, because it's a whole month. I don't know I'm going to be able to prepare, have prepared that many videos for 3 weeks. So I might actually have to do some videos while we're going, maybe without webcam, maybe with poor audio. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, that's something to keep in mind, is that somehow in every one of these laptops, my CPU's been hit harder with the thermals. It clocks down way further. And they're also generally built for the CPU to be weaker than the GPU by quite a bit, to save on cost and to, say, we got a 3060, we got a 3080, but then the CPU is kind of, And CPUs are important. I mean, I, at this point, have become very comfortable with having the absolute best CPU in the world, and then a GPU that's always being bottlenecked pretty much. Well, no, that's always the bottleneck, excuse me. And so it's not fun to go from that to being like, even though my GPU is only being used for like 75%, I'm still below 60 in Expedition 33 when, in the, Lumiere, in Lumiere, where there's all those people. But once you actually get into gameplay, it's in the 80s or whatever. It's like, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is, and it'll do what it does. But that's something you need to look into. If you're looking into laptops, they're pre-built, and there's no way to upgrade. You cannot upgrade that CPU. That CPU is soldered on. It's what it is. It's stuck like that forever. Same with the GPU. It's stuck there. Never going to be able to upgrade. There's framework laptops. Those are interesting. If you want to look into framework laptops, they're supposedly upgradable laptops. I have not done a ton of research into that. But if that's something that interests you, you can do that for sure. Okay, it's kind of like a wrap up. This video has been pretty long, but kind of as a wrap up. Who are laptops for? Who should get a laptop? I would say anybody who does a lot of travel and also wants or needs something that is powerful and beefy to go along with them. That is it. That's the only occasion that I can see it. If it's for schoolwork, I would suggest doing a desktop tower and a cheaper laptop that can just do the, word processing and crud. And that will get you so much better gaming performance while also potentially benefiting you if you're taking this laptop to school in battery life. So that's just the way I see it now. especially now, especially now after having these laptops during school. But really, it's just for those who need something beefy and convenient and take it around with them anywhere they go. That's all it's for. That's the only people I can see it for. If I'm wrong, let me know. If there's anybody out there who's like, I needed this laptop and it's for this reason, let me know. That'd be great to hear from you guys. Again, I want this to be very community driven, this entire channel. So yeah, thank you so much. But yeah, that's about it I have for remarks on this laptop. Yeah, you might see some videos that were made on this laptop at some point. It only got 16 gigs of RAM, which can be rough for video editing. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to try it. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. It means a lot. Again, really close to 1K. So that's amazing. Yep, thank you for tuning in, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.